My name is Chief Master Sergeant Matthew Fisher. I'm the Senior Enlisted Leader of the 79th Air Refueling Squadron. My AFSC is that of a KC-10 boom operator. I've been a boom operator my entire Air Force career, 25 years. I came in with 2 stripes as a boom operator and worked my way up. I was a traditional reservist for the first 18 years and then was offered a full-time position within the reserve. I accepted that, and I've been an ART for the last few years. So what was my role in Operation Allies Refuge? Initially, I was a standard crew member, meaning I was a boom operator on the KC-10 and fulfilling the boom operator roles and responsibilities. The assumption was that we were going to be doing air bridge work, meaning we were refueling other airframes that were carrying passengers like the C-17, the C-5, C-130s out of harm's way. When it came down to it, the need to move people became such, the mass number of people that were being exited out of Afghanistan created this bottleneck, and they needed every aircraft that could carry people. And so rather than doing air refueling, we became a passenger. We carried passengers. When did I hear when volunteers would be needed for the operation? I believe about a week prior to the mobilization that we had is when we heard that volunteers would be needed. The flag went up and asked for who would be interested, and I immediately raised my hand, said, absolutely, that's why I did this. The Friday before we left on a Saturday, so we basically had less than 24 hours notice. The Friday, I received a call from the squadron. I'd just gotten home for the day, and they asked if I was still interested, and I said, of course. And they said, great, well, plan on being at the squadron. I can't remember the exact time we were supposed to arrive. I suspect it was probably around noon. Went to my wife and said, hey, guess what? I'm gonna be gone for, I don't know how long, maybe a week or 2, 3 weeks, who knows? And she just shook her head and said, well, there you go again. Military wives are amazing. Probably about 45 minutes later, the phone rang again, and it was the squadron saying, hey, Chief, we don't need you. We have somebody else that's willing to take that spot. And I paused, and I've never done this before, but I pulled the chief card and said, no, I'm going. That individual can stay. They can stay back. It was a senior master sergeant, and he can backfill me. That's his role. That's why we have it in place. And they sighed, and they're like, okay. Well, the good thing is he got to go as well, but not proud of it because I've never done that before, where I said, I'm the chief and I'm going to do this, but I'm very glad that I did, and it worked out for everybody. So. I think the most important thing to prepare for any mission is to be mission ready, meaning I was good on all of my taskings in terms of whether it's a computer-based training or flying currencies, things that were required to do. So I was green, is the expression. It's green meaning I was good to go. Having done this for a long time, I can pack a bag in probably 25 minutes. So that wasn't an issue. I'm blessed to have a lovely wife who just understands. She was amazing, and she knew that I'd be disappointed if I didn't go. And so it was pretty simple. There really wasn't a lot of preparation because I'd like to think that the operators, the operations group, the folks that are flying the missions, and even a good part of our maintainers, we're just ready. We just know that the phone can ring at any time. First few days of the deployment, what was that like? Well, we showed up, and I believe it was at noon, roughly. And We were briefed by the ops group commander, so my boss's boss, basically. Then the wing commander, Colonel Merkel, showed up, so my boss's boss's boss showed up, and we talked. Basically, just kind of thanking us for being green, being ready, and willing to go. We then went onto the flight line, and we loaded a C-5. Now, I've been doing this for 25 years. I refueled in the air hundreds of C-5s. Well, I don't know about hundreds of times, let's say. Never have I flown on a C-5. And it was my first time flying on a C-5. And we flew from Travis Air Force Base to Mildenhall, England. And it was basically like a red-eye type of a flight by the time we got there. It was early morning, I believe. The Mildenhall base knew there was going to be an influx of air crew, but they did not have enough billeting or hotels to give us rooms. I want to say that we left about 48 hours later, 36, 48 hours later, I can't remember quickly. But we were basically just kind of getting our bearings, figuring out what we were going to do, learning that we would not be doing the air bridge or the air refueling of the other cargo planes, but rather we would be used to move passengers, which created a new conundrum for us. We have in our technical manuals how to floor load passengers. And what that means is the KC-10, we put pallets all through the floor. Pallet is based, well, it's a pallet. They're aluminum and hard. And we, instead of being right on the cargo floor, we have pallets the whole way through. And in these contingency operations, we know how we're supposed to floor load passengers, meaning up to 10 people per pallet with a cargo strap across their waist as a seat belt. And luckily, Senior Master Sergeant Parks, the gentleman that got to participate with me, very smart on all this and was leading the charge on how to floor load passengers. So we were basically trying to get the logistical fix of what we were going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it. What were my biggest concerns at Mildenhall? I don't know that I had any, to be quite honest. It was more of a wait and see. I think everyone that puts on the uniform has a mindset of there's going to be times where we just have to pause, wait and see. I will tell you about the process of floor loading passengers. I will dime myself out. I'm one of the only guys that did not get to floor load passengers. We were the first crew, I believe, to go from Ramstein to Dulles, so from Germany to Washington, D.C. And I don't know who they are, but the optics of it was that floor loading passengers across the Atlantic would be a brutal trip for anybody. And so we used our seat kits, because we can hold, the KC-10 can hold up to 80 people total. I think we carried 70 or 75 on that first go round, and it was very similar to commercial travel. But I will tell you that watching the people come up the air stairs, get onto the KC-10, having to direct them. I don't speak their language, and very few of them spoke English. We did have translators who helped us communicate what we needed from them, where we needed them to be. Getting them seated, the anxiety that was in every single one of these individuals' faces, from the infants that were carried by their parents to the elder statesmen that you knew were somebody important, or you would think so in terms of where they were coming from. There was a lot of anxiety and nervousness with regard to the Afghans that were on the jet with us. The unknown, that unknown, picking up, leaving home. Some of the folks had very expensive Gucci bags. Their luggage was Gucci. Some had hefty bags, black garbage bags with their entire belongings in it. The look of concern was there. The moment that we were able to get airborne Every single person on that, all 70, 75 of them, immediately fell asleep. It was as if they could breathe and they could relax and they felt like they were safe after 4, 5, 6 days of travel, lack of showering, lack of just the things that we take for granted. What were the toughest or unusual things that we encountered and how did we overcome them? Every day was a little bit different and having to basically be ready to pivot. So that first day, that first trip that we took, we went from Mildenhall to Ramstein. We had no idea what support was going to be at Ramstein for us, meaning we didn't know if they were going to have the ability to have toilet paper to use in the bathrooms. We didn't know if there was going to be water or food for the passengers. And so we went out as basically 2 crews. So 2 people for every position, plus our crew chiefs who were exceptional. Those young men were amazing. We went to the shopette, which is the convenience store on base, and cleaned it out, buying granola bars, buying pallets of water, anything that we thought would make these passengers more comfortable, because we had no idea what was going to be there. And we did that, all of us just plunked on our, the cash, and we took care of that. Then arriving at Ramstein, we waited about 8 hours, maybe longer, for the passengers to arrive. We watched trains of passengers, Afghans, go to the commercial aircraft, waiting our turn. We were waiting our turn. And we started getting very nervous because we can only work for so many hours in a day. And working backwards from when we needed to land at Dulles, we were getting closer and closer and closer to that window closing on us. So by the time the Afghans showed up, we had them seated and we were ready to go. I think we had about 20 minutes that we had to get airborne. The bureaucracy of the machine, that was always a struggle. We file our flight plans, get ready to take off, and the flight plans get lost. We communicate through our satellite radios, letting the folks at Dulles know that we are arriving, what we were carrying, that we were going to need customs. We land and customs shows up saying they had no idea that we were going to be there. Just everything that communication-wise was probably, with the other agencies, was probably the biggest struggle. On that day in particular, we land, we're literally at the end of our crew duty day, at that work period that we can have. And customs shows up and says, we have to keep these passengers on the plane. And another 4 hours elapsed and the crew is exhausted. The passengers are exhausted. But the sheer determination of the airmen that we had participating in that, I'm so proud of them. I get a little choked up because the compassion that they showed, I think that's the American spirit. Expand upon the air crew playing with the kids. Absolutely, quite a few of them would play peekaboo for hours, especially when we were waiting in those 4 hours where we could actually get up and walk around the jet. Constantly offering these young kids something to eat, something to drink, playing with them. I think one of the children, the Afghans, actually had a soccer ball, and so they made a little makeshift soccer ball game going on right up near our galley. The delight in these children's faces, seeing someone that looked different than them just smile and engage and play and be silly with them. It leads me to believe that their lives were pretty hard and the parents were just struggling to get by and weren't used to adult men being silly and having fun. And it was just the delight in their eyes, the glee, the parents just grateful I think they were great. As a parent, I think they were grateful that someone else was taking care of their kid for just a few minutes, and they were safe with that. They were okay. As a parent, I remember those days when I was exhausted and someone said, "Hey, let me take your boy for 5 minutes," and it was like, whew, that exhaustive relief was there. How did I feel when I saw them exiting the plane? Well, I was relieved because we had been waiting an awfully long time. I was nervous for them. I didn't know how they would, what was next for them. So a little bit of nervousness in terms of where they were going to stay, what they were going to encounter. I was grateful that we were able to do what we did. The mission itself was so unique. In all my years, that was being a part of that. Operation Allies Refuge was, it's going to take something big to top that. How did the KC-10 perform? The KC-10 is a workhorse. It performed exceptionally. It is such a capable, multifaceted airframe that I don't think the designers of it ever considered what it would do in a case like that. We've talked about it. What if we got to get folks out of Korea? What if we've got to get folks out of harm's way? But I don't think anyone ever thought it would actually happen. So the 10, she's a beaut. I mean, she just does. That plane, it's pretty amazing. But I also think the maintainers, it's a 40-year-old plane. It's getting divested. It's going away. And so with that, there are maintenance issues. But those maintainers, oh my goodness, they worked their behinds off making sure every jet was good. So it was, while the jet did great, the maintainers did better. Compared to other operations, how was Allies Refuge different? The KC-10's function in Operation Allies Refuge was different because it was unknown. It was not the cookie cutter, go fly, go refuel airplanes, go land. It was unique because it was so different. Every day you woke up, every crew was doing something different. So while I went to Ramstein, Dulles, and then we carried passengers, Afghans from Dulles to McGuire, New Jersey. Then we reconfigured our jet to do that floor loading passengers where we took everything off and just put pallets on. Then we went back to Mildenhall. We stayed in Mildenhall, I believe, for a day or two. Then we went down to the United Arab Emirates, and we were anticipating floor loading passengers and taking them back to Ramstein. And so we waited there for a day and a half. That didn't happen. So then we go back to Mildenhall. And so what I'm getting at is it was so unique because everyone was doing something subtly, significantly different. Is there anything else I'd like to talk about or that's different? I really am impressed with the lean ahead, lean into it attitude of the air crew as well as the maintainers. I think that we often forget how difficult it is to make an airplane fly, meaning all of the people behind the scenes. So whether it's the medical folks or our support folks, they made a difference. And the ability for them to support the maintainers and the operators, I think it gets overlooked. And as an operator, I forget. But to be able to see the hard work that everyone put in, Before we even left, we had our aviation resource management team, the folks that make sure that we are good to fly, cutting flight orders. They were up until midnight the night before to make sure that we could go do our job. And I don't think they get enough credit.